Y'all, I know this question seems insignificant and small and like it doesn't matter. You're asked it nearly 10 times a day, and my guess is you answer it wrong every single time. But this tiny question and how you answer it really does have the power to profoundly change your relationships and the way you connect with others. So do not miss this one. Stay tuned. Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Dr. Allison. If you're new here and you don't know me, I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I have made it my jam and my life mission to really simplify psychology, to break down the science and the art to help you live a healthier and more meaningful life. Psychology has a lot of good stuff to say, but unless you're a psychologist or you just love self-help, how would you ever hear about it? And that's why I am here. I want to start with a question. How many times a day do you think someone asks you, "How are you?" Right? Hey, how are you? How many times a day do you think you get that question? Whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's passing a colleague in the hallway, whether it's checking in with your friend when you get off work, talking to your roommate, your kid's teacher, whatever, right? We hear that question, "Hey, how are you?" at least 10 times a day. And I'm gonna be honest, I think the majority of us are answering this question all wrong. Because I'm gonna bet that when somebody asks you this question, you answer one of three ways. Good, fine, okay. Okay? Super boring. Good, fine, or okay. And most of my clients who work with me, those answers are not allowed. Here's my issue with that answer, good, fine, or okay. That question, "How are you?" is really an opportunity for connection. It is another human genuinely asking, "How are you?" They are inviting you to connect, even if it's brief, even if this really isn't an intense connection. But when you answer good, fine, or okay, you give them nothing. They extended the invite for a connection, you looked at their hand and said no thanks. We know that vulnerability and authenticity is at the root of connection. You cannot have connection with another human if you are not giving something, even if it's small, of yourself, if you're not sort of having a moment of vulnerability. If you want to learn more about this or you don't really buy into it yet, I highly encourage you to watch Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability TED Talk. It'll totally teach you all you need to know about this concept and the connection between vulnerability and connection. If we want to develop close relationships and connections, then we have to be willing to give something of ourselves and be vulnerable. And the question, "How are you?" is the perfect place to start doing this differently. Now, before you're like, "I don't want to be telling people my deepest, darkest secrets," great. I don't want you to be doing that either, right? This isn't about being that person that tells the clerk at the store your entire life story. Okay, that's not vulnerability. That's weird and inappropriate. Vulnerability is about taking small risks in connecting with others, and this question provides a perfect opportunity to do that. And if you're thinking like, "Well, I don't know, who do you tell what to?" The amount of information that you would give or that you'd answer to that question really is dependent and proportionate to the relationship. Let's look at a quick example. Let's say it's Monday. You've had a bit of a rough day, kind of a typical Monday. Let's look at some different examples for how you would answer this question. Let's say you go to the grocery store and the clerk says, "Hey, how are you?" And you might normally say, "Oh, I'm good." Instead, maybe you give just a little bit of how you're feeling. And maybe you do that by saying like, "Well, it's Monday, so we got that going for us," right? Or maybe you say, "It's Monday. Does it feel like Monday to you?" In that moment, there is a tiny bit of an acknowledgement that you are a human and you are having emotions. You're not pouring out your entire story, but what happens is when she asked that question, "How are you?" she extended a hand, an opportunity for connection. And when you answer that way, "It's a Monday, like what can I say?" you take that hand back. And you probably will prompt a response from her, something along the lines of, "I feel you," or "We got this." And in that moment, even though it's brief, two humans are connecting. Let's say one of your work friends or colleagues asks you that question, and y'all are a little bit closer. So it makes sense to be a little bit more vulnerable or give a little bit more in this relationship. So they say in their break room, "Hey, how are you?" And they're probably expecting you to just say fine or good, but instead you say, "I'm hanging in there. A bit of a rough morning, but I'm hanging in there." Again, there's a little bit more transparency, and suddenly it prompts this person to think about leaning in or giving something else, right? So they might tell you about their morning, or they might say, "Is there anything I can do to help?" Or they might say, "I feel you." Why does it always feel like Mondays are like that? Again, answering this question differently allows a bridge for connection. And of course, if a close friend asks you this, then what you're answering, what you give, is going to be a little bit more because y'all have a relationship. So maybe to that friend you say, "Girl, oof, it was a rough day. Like, I don't know, I just feel a little bit off lately. I'm not sure what's going on." Right? You're giving more to that person because you have a relationship. But that vulnerability and answering that simple question differently is what allows for increased connection. In a day and age where there are so many different distractions and devices and barriers to connection, we have to be intentional and we have to be thoughtful about creating and making the most out of moments of connection when they happen. Connection is a human need. And I know that sometimes it's scary, and sometimes I wish connection weren't a human need, right? Wouldn't life be easier? But it is. You need it. So I'm giving you homework this week. I don't always give you homework, but this week you have homework. I want you to make an intentional effort to answer the question, "Hey, how are you?" differently. Do not say good, fine, or okay. Now, that doesn't mean you have to answer negatively, right? But even if something's going great, maybe you say, like, "Actually, my day is pretty great." So it's not about giving someone your business all the time. It's about being more transparent and answering that simple question that you're asked 10 times a day, doing it a little bit differently. As always, I am so grateful for the time that we spend together and that you make a point to come back and watch my videos. If you want more simplified psychology, more good stuff like this to help you do life a little bit differently, definitely check out my website, drallisonanswers.com. There's a lot on that website that I don't share here on YouTube. So if you want more good stuff, it's there. And as always, I will be back in 2 weeks with a brand new video. How are you? Answer the question differently. Good luck. Bye-bye.